Hello everyone. So today we'll be starting uh, with the week 7 tutorial session. So this is a tutorial in the set of tutorials on photonic integrated circuits. Okay. So today we'll be discussing something different from our usual sessions. So we'll look at how to simulate. So all the theory concepts that we have studied so far, how do we visualize them? How do we simulate them and know uh, for sure that our designs will work? So till now we were doing it all analytically or by using MATLAB, by doing some numerical calculations. But now let us see. So one of the software tools that is available to us is um, ANSYS Lumerical. Okay, so Lumerical has a lot of different solvers that are very good for photonic simulations. So today we will look at one such solver. Um, so in Lumerical there is a mode simulations software. We'll look at that. And yes, so that is the agenda for today. So today, the question that we'll try to answer is, or the design that we are trying to go for is that we will be trying to do simulations for a RIP waveguide. So basically, we will have a waveguide with a substrate, cladding, and core. We'll simulate the different modes inside this waveguide. So we'll use this mode simulation software by ANSYS, and we will simulate the different modes that will be present in the waveguide. We'll see which are the propagating modes and which are not propagating. And we will design a waveguide so that we get a single mode condition. So we'll design a single mode waveguide. Okay. So let's get started with it. So the waveguide geometry that we will be going for today is something like this. So we can also choose to do fibers. So that will be cylindrical geometry. Well, today just because we're dealing with photonic integrated circuits, I thought it will be more useful to do a rib waveguide like geometry. Okay, and then let us since now we are designing a single mode waveguide, let us fix some parameters. So let's say that our core is silicon. Okay, and the cladding and substrate are SiO2. So this is one of the standard waveguide materials used. We can first start with this, and then we can always play around and try different materials in the software. Then, yeah, then we can fix the wavelength to be 1550 nanometers. Okay, so let's get started with it. So this is how the numerical launcher looks. So I'll go to the products. So these are all the different products or simulation windows that are available. We'll go with the mode solutions, numerical mode. So this is how the view looks like. Okay, so we have an xy view, xz view. So this is where we define our geometry. So we know that we want to define a rectangular waveguide geometry. We'll define it in this region. These are some of the analysis windows and library windows. We can also define the geometry using script that is given here. So for now, just for the simplicity, let's ignore these things and draw a geometry here. So for drawing the geometry, we need an SiO2 cladding, right? So we'll choose a rectangle here. So this is a structure step. So now it gave us a rectangle. Now I want this rectangle to be SiO2. So I'll go to edit object. First I'll change the name to be silicon dioxide. Okay. Then we go to the materials tab, and there are certain materials that are already defined in the ANSYS numerical mode project, and these materials are shown here. So, so from the material database from PALIC, it is taking the data. So SiO2 glass. So now it already knows the refractive index for different wavelengths. So we don't have to give any index manually. Okay. So, and then we define the geometry. So, we want the expand to be, say, spanning from 10 microns, over 10 microns, and Y span also we can give 10 microns or 5 microns. Z for now doesn't matter because we are not looking at this. So, Z is the propagation direction. So, the light is propagating along the Z direction. We need to find the modes. So, if you remember from the discussion in the class, the modes are cross sectional profiles, right? Just a minute. Right. So this is my Z direction. Okay. This is the Y direction and this is the X direction. So the mode is a cross-sectional intensity profile or the electric field profile in the cross section. So the X and Y is what matters to us. The Z is the propagation. So Z will only come into picture when we want to know how much is the loss along the propagation. So yeah. So let us give some Z as 0.6, or we can even change it to 1. Like the Z doesn't matter so much. We'll hit apply. Now you see that the color changed to gray because the stored value for SiO2 is gray. So if I would have chosen some other material, the color would have been different. Similarly, we have to do the same thing for defining the core region now. So we defined the cladding region. Now we have to do the core region. Again, I chose a structure that is a rectangle structure. Then I went to edit objects. I named it as silicon. I chose a material to be silicon. Now here what we need to do is we need to do this override mesh order from material database and select this to be 1, because in the area where there is silicon I don't want it to consider it as oxide. So there is oxide also in this region and silicon also in this region, so it might get confused as to which material it should consider in this particular region. So I have to give it as mesh order 1. So it will consider this silicon material over the oxide material. Okay. So that is done, and then again we have to give the geometry. The geometry, say the X span is 1 micron, the Y span. So the Y span will usually be determined by your fabrication process. So if you start with a wafer that has the top silicon layer of 220 nanometers or 300 nanometers, so based on that you have to give here. Say for now if I'm giving 300 nanometers, apply. Okay. So I just gave this 1 micron arbitrarily. This is what we need to optimize to get a single mode condition. Then I hit OK. So this is the geometry. The geometry is pretty basic. Now we need to define the simulation region and the solver. So there are multiple solvers available inside the mode simulation software. So for finding the eigenmodes, we should go for the eigenmode solver. Okay. Edit object. So this is 2D z normal. See, because we want the propagation direction to be z, so it has to be normal to the z direction. And it's a 2D simulation, so that is why the so if you look here, there is not much meshing in the z direction. It's a 2D solver. So that's also one of the reasons why we don't need to uh, really think so much about the geometry along the z-axis. Oh, yeah. So then geometry expand, we can reduce it a little. Okay. So that it stays inside. Yeah, everything else looks fine. Mesh settings. So these are the default mesh settings. You can go ahead and increase the mesh so that the higher the mesh setting, the more time it will take to simulate, but it will be a better simulation. Let me put 100. Again, since it's a 2D simulation, there is no mesh cells Z. Yeah. So this is defining the mesh cells by number of mesh cells, the mesh settings. You can also give other things like maximum mesh step settings, and yeah. So there are other options, maximum mesh step or number of mesh cells. So I'm just choosing number of mesh cells. Okay. Then there are boundary conditions. Usually metal boundary conditions work fine for mode simulations. And there are more other advanced options. So for now, this much is enough. So we just changed the geometry. We chose the solver type to be 2DZ normal, and the mesh settings, suitable mesh settings, and then hit apply. Okay. So that's it. Now we just hit run. So once we hit run, the analysis window opens. So in this, we have to give the frequency of the wavelength. So we are going for 1550 nanometers. So 1.55 micrometer is the wavelength. We can visualize the mesh structure. So yeah, so it basically is even showing us the refractive index difference and also the mesh. Then number of trial modes. Say I want 10 modes. Search near n. And then I just hit calculate modes. So see, you see this pixelation thing, right? So this is pixelated because of the mesh step size. So if I give a higher step size, higher number of mesh uh, cells, then the pixelation will reduce. Like we will see a more smoother image. Okay. So now it's showing me the mode. So what it is exactly showing is the electric field intensity. So it's plotting the modal fields, amplitude, electric field intensity. So I can also plot the magnetic field intensity and other things also, energy density, then electric field along X, electric field along Y and Z, and so on. So based on that, we can determine if it is a TE polarized mode, TM polarized mode. Okay, so yeah, so this is for the first mode. Okay, so there are multiple modes that are possible in this waveguide. So there is second mode, third, fourth. So let me just plot EX. Okay, so EX for the first mode is like this. It looks like a TE mode, right? And you can see that the TE polarization fraction is 100. That means it's a pure TE mode. And then there's a second TE mode, 99, again close to 100. Then the third mode, so this is 2, so that means it is mostly TM mode. So yeah, and then there are more quasi modes like mixture of TE and TM. So there are multiple modes. So if so many modes are possible, how do we determine which modes will propagate in the waveguide and which will be eventually lost? Right? How do we know that? So one way of knowing is to look at the effective index. Okay, so we know that in a waveguide, so the basic ray optic principle was that the principle of total internal reflection, right? And when does total internal reflection occur? Total internal reflection happens when we have um, n core is greater than n clad. That was the basic principle. Then of course there is more to it than just this. So when I am sending a light of lambda equal to 1550 in my waveguide, so because of the waveguide geometry and because of the wavelength of light, the refractive index that the light sees as it is propagating is not exactly n core, right? So it is what we call as an effective. So there is an effective refractive index that the mode is seeing. So if this n effective is less than n clad, what do you think will happen? The mode will not propagate because the condition for total internal reflection won't be satisfied. The mode is not confined, we can say, or propagating, or its mode is lossy. If n effective is greater than n clad or n substrate, whatever, whichever is the larger, then we say that the mode is propagating. Okay. So basically, we have to look at the effective refractive index. So let's go ahead and check that. So, so I have the 10 modes here. The first mode has refractive index of 2.95. So if you remember, the refractive index of n clad in this case is, so that is refractive index of NSiO2, right? That is nothing but 1.55 around for lambda equal to 1550 nanometers. So it's around this value. So anything that is greater than this value will be propagating in the waveguide. Okay, so this will be propagating in the waveguide. Again, this is also greater than 1.55, greater. So the first 6 modes will propagate in the waveguide. See, this is the second, yeah, TM mode with two second order TM mode. So yeah, so all these modes will propagate, but this one won't propagate. This won't propagate. So these won't propagate. Okay. So is this what we want? We don't want this, right? So this is progress we have made. We now know how the modes inside the waveguide look like, and we also know certain other things about the mode, right? So we know the effective index that it is seeing. We for some reason it's not showing any loss here. I think some problem with the way I set up the simulation, but we will see that later. Then uh, we know the group index for the modes. We know if it's TE or TM by looking at the TE polarization fraction, and this is just another way of representing it, waveguide TE TM. Okay, and there is something called as effective area of the mode. So yeah, so all these things they have given in detail how they calculate these parameters. You can go ahead and look up at the ANSYS Lumerical website. Yeah. So you see that the area, effective mode area, will go on increasing as the number of mode increases. So for a lower refractive index mode, the area will be higher in general because it's not exactly confined inside the waveguide, right? It will be more spread out. whereas if you see the first mode, it is very tightly confined, so the mode area is smaller. The exact equation, how they are calculating, you can check the website, it is given there. Okay, so all these things we know. So now we want to design a waveguide that has uh, that has a very that has only single mode propagation. So all these modes should have a refractive index that is lesser than 1.55. Okay, so let me close this analysis window. So how do you think I can go about finding the exact geometry for which my uh, my waveguide will be single mode? So there are some things that we need to consider before doing that. So while we are fabricating a waveguide, okay, there are some things that we cannot change, right? So say I start with a wafer with silicon substrate, SiO2, and then silicon on top. So this top layer silicon is my device layer, SiO2 is the cladding layer, and this silicon is just a substrate to hold it, like some strong base material like thing. So if my wafer, the starting wafer is like this, there is nothing much that I can do about the thickness of the SiO2, that is the substrate SiO2, and the thickness of my device layer silicon. Okay, so I cannot change silicon height, cannot be changed. So only thing that we can change is width of waveguide. So you need to understand how we will go about fabricating. So we will define certain regions, deposit PR in certain other regions, and then etch it, right? So we'll etch some portions. So whatever is left, that is the waveguide, and the rest of the portions will get etched. So it is possible to change the width based on the openings in the photoresist region, but it's not possible to change the height once the wafer is fabricated. So say I'm going with silicon height of 300 nanometers, that I'll keep it fixed and I'll only change the width, and we'll see in the simulation what is the ideal width for getting the single mode propagation. So that was one of our design problems, right? So we already saw which mode will propagate, which won't propagate, and we were able to simulate different waveguides. Now we want to see um, this point, design of single mode waveguide. Let's go ahead and do it. So yeah, so what I can do is I can change the width manually every time and run the simulations, or I can run the sweep. So Lumerical allows us to run sweeps. Oh, it was already there, huh? It's there here. So, we go. So this first icon is a sweep. So what do we want to sweep it on? So we go for edit the sweep, and sweep name will be sweep width. Add parameters width. Select parameter. So we select the parameter from the different objects. So we are changing the silicon width, and width is given by nothing but the expand. The type will be length because it's in microns length that we want to change. So we will change it from say 100 nanometers 2. How much? So this one we gave it as 1 micron, right? So 1 micron had lot of modes, so it will obviously be lesser than 1 micron. So let me give one. Let me add the different results. And effective of mode 1 I selected. Okay. Sorry. I just animated it so it will just change the width. We saw that. Okay. And I just hit run. Let's see what happens. So this is for the 100 nanometer wide waveguide. We see that none of the modes are actually confined. Okay. How do I close close this. For the 200 nanometer one also, one mode is confined. It's a TM mode, but yeah, so we can say it's a single mode operation. But that's a TM mode that is confined. So in the design problem, we didn't specify if we want the waveguide to be TE mode or TM mode. So yeah, let's just do that right away. Or let's see, it doesn't matter. Let's see the third option. So in the third case, we see there are two modes that are confined in the waveguide. One is a TM mode, again the previous TM mode that is still there, and then there is also a TE mode that is there. So usually what happens is we will send a TE polarized light or a TM polarized light into the waveguide. We usually don't send both TE and TM modes at the same time because then that will again cause dispersion, right? So we design a waveguide either for the TE mode or for the TM mode. So yeah, so let's say that we are designing this waveguide for a TE mode. So let's add that to our list of design variables. So 300 nanometer width, we could see one TE mode and one TM mode. Let's go to 400. In 400, we see one TE mode with higher refractive index, then a TM mode, and then the rest are not confined. So if we are only sending TE, 400 nanometers wide waveguide is also fine. So we'll still have a single mode operation. So let's see if we can go higher, it's better, right? So as we keep going higher in the width, the effective index will increase. So we want to find the thickest or the widest waveguide for which our mode will be confined. Of course, like there are other considerations also. The footprint also matters. But yeah, for now, let's find out the maximum thickness for which our waveguide will be a single mode. Let me close this also. Here I have one TE mode, one TM mode, and if you see here, we have another TE and another TM mode. So this is now becoming to a this is no more a single mode. So even if I'm only sending TE polarized light, there will still be two modes. If I'm only sending TM polarized light, there will still be two modes. So we don't want that. So we cannot go ahead with this 500 nanometer wide waveguide. Right, so this was 500. Just let me cross check. Yeah, it's 500. So uh, we saw that till 400 nanometers it was fine. It was still a single mode waveguide. So we can safely say that 400 nanometer wide waveguide will work for our case. transverse electric. So we have successfully uh, designed a waveguide in the given design parameters to be a single mode waveguide for a TE polarized light at 1550 nanometers. Good. So we were able to do that. So now, once we have done it, this is another way also. So when we did this sweep, right, we can also visualize the results. So I had given two results, right, an effective mode 1 and an effective mode 2. So okay, so the problem, so we can sometimes do it like this also, but the problem with this is actually it's which mode is mode one and which mode is mode two keeps changing all the time. So whenever there's an ineffective switching, so I'll just show you once more. This is like this, right? So if you look here closely, probably this was the mode corresponding to. So probably this was the TE mode first, and then it switched here, and this became the TE mode. So if you saw the simulations, right, for in the 100 nanometer case, the TE mode was the one that had a lower effective refractor index compared to the TM mode. So the simulator is not able to differentiate between um, the different modes as such. It's only taking mode 1, mode 2 based on the effective refractive index. So that's why this is not very reliable method, but you can always, if you want to have a single mode propagation, you can always look at this graph and then see which is 1.5. uh, to illustrate that, I'll have to put more number of modes. Let me just do that. So this is an effective mode 1, mode 2, and why it's not letting me. Model, objects, FDE, objects, data, objects, mode 3, and effective. So by looking at all the simulations, we know that mode 1 is probably the TE fundamental mode. Mode 2 is probably the TM fundamental mode, but it will keep changing based on which effective index is higher. Mode 3 will be the second order mode. Or yeah. Oh no. I choose mode 3 again. So I have chosen the first 5 modes. Hit OK. And I'll run the sweep again. So basically what we're trying to do now is we are plotting. So along the x-axis, So we'll be generating a plot of um, width, waveguide width, and n effective for different modes. So say this is the fundamental first order mode. Second order mode, third order mode, fourth order mode, like that. So if you look at it, say my and clad is so much. So this is say 1.55. It is the cladding refractive index. So for waveguide width below this number, say this is some A waveguide width. So for waveguide width below A, we won't have any mode that is propagating in the waveguide because all the n effectives for all the possible modes are lower than 1.55. Between A and B, we will have a single mode. Again, whenever this crosses between between B and C, we will have two modes, right? So it can be anything. So they say this is fundamental TE, this can be fundamental TM, this can be first order TE, first order TM, like that. So yeah, so based on the waveguide width and based on looking at these plots, we can decide how many modes we want to confine in the waveguide. Let's see if our simulations are done. Yeah. Visualize an effective mode 1. So here you see, right? So this was the original mode 1 and this is the original mode 2. But again, you can probably see another crossover point here. Yes. So now, from the previous discussion, we know this is fundamental TE, this is fundamental TM, this is first order TE. So, for a waveguide width, let me zoom into this region. Okay. So, we want an effective to be higher than 1.55. So, for waveguide width below, say 1. Say 150 nanometers, we only have the blue line that is above 1.55, right? So only one mode will be confined. Okay, this is probably the fundamental TM mode. Then for above 200 nanometers waveguide, both TE and TM are there, but the refractive index is very low, so they will be having a lot of so the index contrast is low, so propagation loss will be higher, right? So if we go ahead at 250 nanometers, again there are two modes. 300, again these two modes. 350, again these two modes. 400, still the two modes. But if you look at 450 nanometers, then we see that the first order modes have started coming up in picture. You see here? So the 1.5 line will be somewhere here. At 400, the first order modes are below 1.5, but at 4.5 width, they have started, they have crossed the 1.5. So one of them is the first order TE, second one is the first order TM. So our waveguide width has to be lesser than 450 nanometers. So for safety, we'll say let it be 400 nanometers. So let's just do it now. Now that we have found out how much width we want, let's just do it. Let's put the silicon width to be 400 nanometers. The expand will be 0.4. Let's run the simulation. And how many modes we need? We don't need 10 anymore. Let's just put this 5 complete modes. Oh man, what is it doing? Oh yeah, so we made a mistake here. We put search in range. So that is searching all over the place from 1.4 to 1.2, but our refractive index will be not close to these two values. So it's best to put near n. Okay, so it will search near the silicon refractive index. Choose calculate. Yes. Yeah, so as expected, we see a TE mode with 2.47 effective index. Then one TM mode, 2.24, with slightly lower refractive index. And then the rest of the modes are not confined. So this is a single mode waveguide, uh, primarily designed for the TE mode. And yeah, if we are not sending a polarized light in it, then we will have both TE and TM mode. So it will not be a single mode as such, but it will still have only the fundamental modes. Yeah. Okay. So I guess that is all for today's class. We will we'll continue this discussion further in the upcoming classes.